All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Disney Afternoon Panel. My name is Aaron Sparrow. I was the editor on the Darkwing Duck comic book. Right next to me is Tad Stones, creator of Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck. Right next to him is Jim Cummings. You may know him as the terror that blats in the night. Winnie the Pooh. Tigger. Ray from Princess and the Frog. Ed, the Lion King, one of my personal favorites. To his left is Rob Paulson. Also known as Gusto Gummy. Agent Steelbeak.
Ducks.
Foulmouth on Tiny Good Adventures.
I play a lot of chickens and ducks.
Yakko. Pinky. To his left is Jim Magon, creator of Tailspin, co-creator of Chippendale Rescue Rangers. And of course, James Silvani, who we have previously met. First of all, thank you all so much for coming out. This is, I didn't expect this large a crowd at first, and then Twitter and Facebook and everybody messaging me, I was like, oh my gosh, we might actually have to turn people away. So I'm glad everybody got in here. And now, I don't know where to start. Thank you, everybody. Good night, that's right. All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of Q&A and to get things rolling. I'll just have everybody go down and introduce themselves and say anything that they want to tell you, and then we'll. Well, I introduced you, but now you get to.
For this panel, Jim and I will be doing all the funny voices, and Robinson will be dull and boring.
That's his default. He defaults to Ed Wynn every time. Some people's default is Dudley Do-Right. Yours is Ed Wynn.
Yes.
Isn't that funny?
I want to do an episode once of the attack of the Ed Wynns coming from another dimension. We're just, because everybody does an Ed Wynn. Just, it was like, really, we're going to pay guys to do what we do around the house?
Well, the attack of the Ed Winds is probably better than the attack of Ed's Wind.
That's true.
It's not something we heard of yet.
Now, Jim, I believe you brought a clip.
What's that?
Oh,
Did I bring it?
Yeah, because I think we probably want to ask questions for him.
Yeah, well, let's show them some stuff, and then we'll
First of all, let me just say, the Disney Afternoon started when the Disney sales team figured out that they could lock up a 2-hour time slot with syndicators by running 4 Disney cartoon shows back to back. And the first four cartoon block that they did was Gummy Bears, which was an NBC show. Then DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, and Tailspin was the new series of but right after that, we did Darkwing Duck, and then was Goof Troop after that, Tad?
I think, or was it Bonkers? Bonkers and Goof Troop. Bobcat gets
Anyway.
no love.
Poor Bonkers. I'm going to leave. Wow, this is a tough crowd.
Yeah. I went to a couple of panels, and I realized how much more interesting they were when you didn't just look at talking heads. So I happen to have what was my pitch to the syndicators for the Goof Troop series. It's 4 minutes long, so it hopefully won't eat up too much of our time.
Did you sell it?
No.
Oh.
So this is an unsold TV show called Goof Troop.
That's right.
Marie,
How do you like it so far?
Can you put your hand up, please? Thank you. Volunteers coming around to collect something that we're going to show you.
Let's watch it!
All right, let's run it.
No, thanks, guys.
Technical difficulties.
He's gonna do shadow puppets with his hands in a minute. It'll be fun.
That's just Jim's home movies that he had on there too.
All it was. He just takes over that.
It's a pretty shady
Hey, welcome to Comic Con International.
Aaron, I have a question for you. Is it really 25 years? Was the Disney Afternoon started in '88?
No.
It was '89, right?
The cartoons actually start, it's give or take. The cartoons started, Gummy Bears started somewhere in the late 80s. And then the actual cartoon block, the Disney Afternoon, was actually only, I think, 23 years ago. But I just split the difference because it was catchier.
That's so we can do it again.
Yeah.
So we can do it again in 2 years. That's a case of deja vu. Actually, Jim and I were at the very beginning when just 1 week after Michael Eisner started at Disney, he called. I forget what the fraction was, but.
Oh no, thank you, because I was going to tell you.
Okay, good. Anyway, I was actually on vacation. It was a Sunday, and I got a call because I'd done some work for merchandising side. That would you mind coming to Michael Eisner's house? They want to talk about TV animation. It's like, oh really? Like I'm going to say no to going to the new guy's house in Bel Air. So, but you can take it over from here. You remember the numbers.
What happened was that they asked, I think, 8 people to come to this meeting. Kind of a diverse group, actually. I was from producing children's records for Disney, and Tad, like he said, you were working at features.
Well, I had done features, and I worked over at WED, which became Imagineering, and then for a very short time, I was developing stuff for Bo Boyd, who was the VP or president, whatever, of Disney merchandising at the time. So they had seen me come up with animated material, so that's why I was in their heads and they were, I guess Gary was basically the guy they went to pull the group together.
So they pulled together this diverse group. We're sitting on Michael Eisner's couch on a Sunday morning. He'd just taken over the company. His kids are in the kitchen eating cereal, watching TV. I mean, it was the weirdest meeting I've ever been in.
Well, especially since, were you with me when you walked in the back door?
Yes, we went in the back door.
Okay, we're, hillbillies. We walked in the house, obviously big house, Bel Air, ivy covered as I recall, little tiny door, it's like, is this the front door, is this the side door? And we kind of go over the back. We end up going through the kitchen, his wife's there in a robe, the kids at the table.
Seriously.
Hi, we're here for the meeting. It was just like,
So we get into the living room and we start talking ideas. He comes up with the craziest idea I've ever heard in my life, which is his kids had just come back from camp and they said that they were eating some candy called gummy bears. And he said, make me a show called Gummy Bears. And I thought, are you psycho? That, you eat the main characters every week. So what happened was New York Times prints up this big thing, how Eisner's taking over Disney and how he pulled together these 8 greatest minds at Disney. So we were going to make up t-shirts that said, I am 12.75% of the greatest minds at Disney. Or whatever that fraction is.
It was funny, but he did feel like, his thought was, and Jeffrey shared, Jeffrey Katzenberg, that Disney is the name in animation, and it should be everywhere animation is. So they wanted to explore that. So at that point, it could have been PBS, commercials, obviously television, just anywhere. It's like, why are we not there? It's not like your television stuff is going to look like your feature stuff, but it should be the best stuff on TV, just like the features are the best then. That was the goal. So, when they came into the company, it really reinvigorated things, and because they just love movies, they love television.
Well, that worked out.
Animation was a whole new world, yeah.
So, a whole new world. Wait a minute. That sounds like a song cue, Tad.
For what?
Do you guys want to do a DuckTales sing-along?
Please remind me to tell you about the DuckTales song a little bit later, but I just want to say that these 2 guys here, were in the Goof Troop TV series.
Yes.
And this was PJ, Max's best friend. And that was PJ's dad, Pete.
My little buddy. Daddy can't miss you if you don't go away.
And is Mike Carranza here, by any chance? Okay, anyway, you'll see his name on some of these art cards on the video you're about to watch. This is a little 4-minute presentation of how we sold the Goof Troop series. I hope.
Disney Studios has always had 3 superstars, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. And we decided it was about time to give one of those superstars his own show. So I want to introduce you to Goof Troop. And in it, Goofy is now a man of the 90s. He's a single cat living in suburbia with his 3 phones, 2 TVs, 1 cat, and a very contrary 11-year-old son. Let me take you through a day in the life. An alarm clock goes off. It belongs to good old Goofy, that good-natured klutz whose motto is, "A day without sunshine is like night." Goofy embraces the dawn like every other obstacle in his life with boundless and bumbling enthusiasm. Now I want to show you a difference. Here's his son, Goofy Jr., or Max as he likes to be called, because he hates being saddled with an adjective like his father. Anyway, as you can tell from Max's enthusiasm, this is a school day. Ah, here's Mr. Bright-Eyed Bushy-Tailed, all dressed and headed downstairs, right out of his shower. You've heard of soap on a rope? Well, this is dope on the soap. Max has finally dragged it out of bed and begun his day in his own inimitable style, using the blow dryer to not only fix his hair, but to heat some leftover pizza. As you're beginning to see, Max is different than his dad. Now, Max loves Bo Jackson. Goofy thinks he's one of the Jackson 5. Max loves Mario Brothers. Goofy's pretty sure they beat him up in the 3rd grade. Max loves his VCR. Goofy can't spell VCR. Anyway, Goofy heads downstairs to make a nutritious breakfast, or more to the point, a nutritious mess. "Junior, food's on!" Well, Max heads downstairs shaking his head, wondering how did such a radical kid like me end up with such a goof for a father? And so it would appear that the fruit seldom falls far from the tree. However, this is a curse that Max is determined to break. He desperately wants to swim out of the deep end of his father's gene pool. So who is this Max dude anyway? Well, like all kids, he believes he's brighter than his father. He's a wisecracking little headbanger with big ideas that always go awry. Now, a thinker like Max needs a sidekick, so I want you to meet PJ, who is Max's main man, confidant, next-door neighbor. In this series, the 2 boys are basically inseparable. As you can see, PJ is stronger and bigger than Max. However, he's definitely the follower of the 2. And the reason for this is he's a bit oppressed at home. Let's see why. Here's his family. This is his little sister, Pistol, his mom, Peg, and his father, Pete. Yep, that's the original Bad Pete going back to Steamboat Willie days. A perfect foil as Goofy's neighbor. He's materialistic, pushy, and opinionated. And he loved to run his family like it was a boot camp, but the women in his life won't give him an inch. So guess who gets the brunt of all of his oppression? Affection. Yep, it's his son, PJ. And perhaps that's why Max and PJ are best friends. They have something in common. Oddball fathers. Parents. You can't live with them and you can't sell them. But of the 2 dads, Goofy is definitely the one with the heart. And as much as Max would love to grow up to be different than his father, he has inherited one factor which sees him through all of his crazy schemes. And that is a very positive, never-give-up attitude. And we call that factor the Max factor. You see, good old Goofy just seems to stumble to the beat of a different drummer. And Max would love to be proud of his father, but he's constantly being embarrassed by him. And I'll give you an example. The good news is, you've just built the world's gnarliest skateboard ramp. The bad news is, your father won't let you try it till he tests it first. The good news is, the ramp works great. The bad news is, your father's now being broadcast in every weather satellite photo around the world. And the funny thing is, none of these stupid antics ever seem to bother Goofy. It's like his neighbor Pete says, genius has its limits, but stupidity knows no bounds. However, Goofy, like all fathers, is determined to pass along to his son what little wisdom he's garnered. For example, if you bait your line with a leg of lamb, you can catch the really big one, son. But through all these crazy escapades, the one thing that Max learns is, just when you're convinced your folks are totally useless, they're there for you when you're totally useless. So relax, Max. Your father ain't so bad. He's just goofy. Now let's face it, kid, you're a little goofy. Welcome to the Goof Troop, kid.
Wow. Jim Magon. And they brought it anyway.
I just want to say one thing about that. In Paul McCartney's song Yesterday, he says, I'm not half the man I used to be. I'm twice the man.
Actually, it was great seeing that every show was basically sold that same way with card pitches, where
Really?
that we would just do, cards that would show character, situation, the premise of the series, and just, as I recall, all my cheat notes were definitely on the back of the card. So it became a system that line was, you're looking down at the card as you're going through. So it was very low tech, but that's how he sold everything. But I want to get, when I first started working with these guys, Jim did really the first, I had that meeting, at Eisner's house with Jim and the other 6 creative geniuses of Disney Company. And then I went back to features, I believe, at that time.
Yeah.
And Jim was there right on the ground floor. And there's the first 2 shows that were sold were Wuzzles and Goof Troop. Wuzzles came of an idea of 2 different types of animals put together. What was the original name? It was an island, something island?
Oh, I don't know. Half-breed.
But it was like...
Who remembers the Wuzzles? Anyone?
Anyway, it was so the idea was, and I wasn't there. Gary Chrysler was the guy who was the head of the division. He, had the guys pitch it to various toy companies and all that, and they pitched it to Hasbro, and the guy went white and said, "I have to excuse myself from the room," because Hasbro had their own line of the exact same idea, 2 different types of animals together, called the Wuzzles. And basically they decided, well, instead of having competing ideas, especially since they were ready to launch their idea, they put together this show. So the idea was, now we have to meet the networks and sell them something. And Eisner and Katzenberg said, you can't just go with one idea. You can't, you need something else. And that's when Jim took on the Gummies with Art Patello. So that was like Gummies, way more than the Wuzzles. Gummies set the style of the Disney TV animation, at least all those early years, which are in a lot of ways mini features. So, and I knew Rob from being Gusto Gummy because I got onto that 3rd season.
Yeah. Now, Gummy Bears was where we first met these 2 guys. Right. Jim played, we didn't know who the hell Jim Cummings was, he was just a guy. And you played Chummy Gummy.
Chummy Gummy, yeah.
Well, he was so ubiquitous in Beverly Hills because he sold oranges at the corner of Wilshire and Santa Monica Boulevard.
Scurvy didn't stand a chance.
Good oranges too, by the way.
And then when we were going into our 2nd season, we said we need to introduce a 7th Gummy. And we needed somebody who would just drive Grumpy Gummy crazy. And that's where we came up with the artistic Gusto. And Gusto became a regular on the series after that.
Yeah, thank you.
And a lot of people don't know this because the voice was done by somebody else later, but I was the first Artie Gecko.
Were you really?
Yeah, for that episode, yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it. Go
I don't
ahead.
even remember how we...
Was it Ultimate? Did Frank did it? Did Frank?
Probably Frank.
Probably Frank.
Frank
yeah.
Welker.
Yeah, Frank probably did already Gecko. Yeah. The best, yeah. The best of us.
He's the Beatles.
He is the Beatles. Yeah, he's the big Kahuna Beatles, everything.
Yes, indeed.
But I remember clearly getting that gig, and that's when I met all of you guys, and also Art Patello, with whom I went to work ultimately on Jim and I both on Tasmania. He's a Tasmanian devil as well. And the Tick, Art did that. But we first met all these fine folks there, and I recall going to my first recording session for Gummy Bears and walking in and seeing June Foray, Ed Gilbert, Corey Burton, Bill Scott, Paul Winchell, all of these people who were just, the best of the, I already knew Corey, and it's not hyperbole to call in the same phrase with folks like Jimmy Cummings. The word genius gets bandied about. Corey and Jimmy, and they are really genii. But to be able to walk in there and see all these, respectfully, older folks who made my childhood I mean, it's crazy when June Foray opens her mouth, you just go,
Oh, I know.
it's all over.
And now here you are in a room with, you're in a room full of people whose childhood you made.
Oh, thank you.
Some of us are.
And it was so lovely, it was so lovely that so many of them got out of jail for the day to come see us. So neat.
Work release.
In fact, I thought I saw someone with a Beagle Boy t-shirt on.
Really?
Stand up, whoever that was.
Beagle Boys
She
t-shirt?
left.
I see a guy in a mask. There we go.
There it is.
Good job.
Now, here's what I want to say about the Disney afternoon, because that's why you came for the 23rd anniversary.
Well, it's 25 Canadian, so.
Oh, yeah. We were, first I got to back up and tell you a story. Lucille Ball once went to one of these things, and you know, the crowd stood up and applauded, and somebody screams, "We love you, Lucy," and she says, "That's because I raised you."
Yeah.
And the same thing here is that for a lot of you, the Disney afternoon was the babysitter for the latchkey generation. And yeah, and you come home and it's like, who's babysitting me? Well, you know, the Beagle Boys,
Yeah.
Blonde,
Chippendale, I see that, yeah, right. I know, it's just, it's so exciting to be here.
Tell me that, yeah.
So what you all need to do is you need to storm the Disney studios and tell them that they should make more.
Yeah.
Anyway, the huge hit that came soon after, of course, was DuckTales. And I believe the term is yoo-hoo. Yoo-hoo.
That's right.
Do you have it queued up?
Depends on what country you're in.
All right.
Well, let me see what I can do. Talk about
The Russian DuckTales, that'll be.
That was like,
the Finnish is my favorite.
The finish.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
Have you
wow.
seen the guy that plays the guitar and does like 18 different, 20 different cartoon theme songs?
Really?
Online? Yeah, on YouTube. It's amazing.
the great one on YouTube I like is, I think it was DuckTales, but it was a symphony.
Really?
And but I like a college symphony or something like that. And you're saying, this is familiar, because they're playing classical.
Right.
And you're going, this is familiar. And oh, okay. And the audience gets
All right.
it.
If you're,
Oh,
oh, you got it? Okay.
well, we have to get the video from Nordstrom.
Well, then let me tell you real quickly the DuckTales theme song story. I was producing children's records before I came over to TV animation, and I knew that the thing that kids like to listen to in children's records are a lot of funny noises and hand claps and whistles and stuff. So the song was written by Michael and Terry Silverstein. No, they didn't write the DuckTales.
No, they do.
They wrote Gummy Bears and Tailspin. So the song gets recorded, and they send, of all people to go to the mix, they sent Michael Webster. And Michael Webster was one of these, I'm one of you. He wore a suit, but with jeans to show how cool he was.
Only on Fridays, I think.
Only on Fridays. And he came into work with the mix down of the song. And here's how the song went. Boom, 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 boom. You're gonna hear it in a second. And so when it comes to the DuckTales, it goes, DuckTales.
No, it wasn't
There was
there.
no ooh-ooh. And I said, Michael, where's the ooh-ooh? He says, it was silly, I took it out. And I said, you gotta put it back in. Kids everywhere will sing it. Even people at panels will sing it.
I mean, I gotta say, I understood what happened, because obviously we had the demo around the office, and we all talked about the woo-hoo, and saying like, God, it's gonna drive you crazy. And he thought we were actually criticizing that. It was like, yes, it's gonna drive you crazy. That's a good thing. You're not supposed to forget.
One of the things you may not know is that Jim's upcoming memoirs are entitled The Ooh-Ooh Stays in the Picture. Right?
All right, see if you know the words.
Okay.
Life is like a hurricane, yeah, duck bird, race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's a duck blur. It's all a mystery, or rewrite history. DuckTales, woo! Every day that I've been making DuckTales.
you. That was great.
By the way, how awesome is it that we're about to get the remastered DuckTales video game from Capcom?
That gave me chills a little bit. I haven't heard that in a long time.
The DuckTales was edited by Jim and Ted Anasty and Pat Cameron, who had come over from Hanna-Barbera and Smurfs. They tended to bring a lot of the kind of the sillier stuff, a lot of the character stuff, the broad humor. And Jim brought the Carl Barks, which is what Ree wanted. So Jim did like the 5-parters, the big adventures. It's Jim with a Y. Brought the, that, and to me it's the mix that must have been a huge hit. George Lucas once told us that DuckTales was to syndication as Star Wars was to movies. Wow. I really don't know what that means, but I always know it because it's awesome.
Doesn't that mean you get a check?
And that was before you made the first 3, so it's like
It means there should be no DuckTales prequels.
And I remember, didn't George Lucas once say to you and Robert De Niro, guys, don't be a name dropper?
Yeah.
He turned to Steven Spielberg and said, is that true, Steven? And he said, yes. I remember that.
That's right.
That's sage wisdom.
That's right. Thank you, David.
Wait a minute, I want to do I just want to do a little quick hand show here. How many people at this table get residuals from working on these shows?
I think I do. I got it.
Okay.
Well, let me just say, Jim is.
We owe them money now.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Jim is so, Jim he's so humble that, you guys were talking about, Tad was talking about Mr. Eisner's home being so large. Let's just put it this way. Jim bought that house as a place to keep his stuff. Then he got a residual check and bought the Hearst Castle. But he doesn't like to talk about it. Matter of fact, if it gets too loud, it's Jimmy's helicopter landing in the back.
You sang autographs out by the summer.
That's right.
That's right. Oh, God. Just shoot me.
Then, quickly, and we'll find more excuses to let these guys talk, but going to the Rescue Rangers, Jim and I worked on that together. And the first pitch was, had a nearsighted eagle, it had a chameleon who could do plaid, but it hurt. It had a cricket in it that was a baseball fan called Chirp Sing. Yeah, Chirp Sing. And it had a female mouse engineer named Gadget.
Trash McNeil.
What was the big mouse called?
I don't know. No, it was Boomerang?
Boomerang, something like that.
Boomerang, something like that. He was just an Australian guy with the hat, and it was a kangaroo rat.
Like Rescuers Down Under?
And basically we pitched it, and they loved the concept. This was Michael and Jeffrey.
Except none of the characters.
Yeah, well, no, they said, we really like this concept, but, I'm forgetting, the lead was Kit Colby, who was this mouse, I believe, with an aviator jacket and a little fluffy collar. And they said, we really love this concept, but I don't feel anything for your, for the lead character. And I thought,
already had a mouse.
he's,
Yeah,
exactly.
They did have a mouse.
I thought they were unfamiliar. I said no, because that was the same meeting where we pitched basically one-line descriptions of Bubba Duck and Robo-Duck, who became Gizmo. Tony Stark. Anyway, they said, no, we got those guys right away. This needs more work. And then conversation continued, and we talked about, okay, DuckTales, you can't use Mickey Mouse. Should we animate Goofy? It was basically of the classic 7 or whatever it is of Disney. It's like, which one could they feel they could put on TV? Because they knew things were getting better, but they were very protective of the characters. And when we hit, going down the list of, Goofy, Pluto, Donald, and all that, when we hit Chip and Dale, Michael said, that's it, put those two in that show. And I remember Jeffrey, and this is probably wrong, I remember him saying, home run.
Cat is not
Home run.
Yeah, Jeff is absolutely right. That's how they would grade things. They said, this is a really good idea, but it's not a home run yet.
Yeah.
And that's when we came up with Kit Colby and Cole Chatterson. Who were sort of like Miami Mice. And
But wait a minute, did Miami Mice was from the first Gong show that led to Rescue Rangers.
Right.
I forgot about
So
And that one, Jeffrey said, ground rule double.
Yeah. So what happened was, we were in this meeting, and that's when they said, these two mice, we don't know them. Let's make them Chip and Dale.
We don't want to meet him.
And that's how the show that's how it became a home run.
Right.
So basically, the reason why all those characters changed is that suddenly we had, well, obviously, Chip got a swell jacket out of the pitch. Once you have a double lead, it's like, okay, well, how are they going to work off these other characters? And then that, changed everything, and a lot of characters were combined. You can see we never let go of ideas because Kit resurfaced in Tailspin just as a name, and the various cheese names ended up. Monterey Jack became this amalgam of the World Adventurer. And then I remembered one drawing that Bruce Morris did back in Features when they were first working on Rescuers sequel, and for a while there was an Arabian adventure, and he just had these little mice in full white robes and on desert. They weren't on camels, I forget, but one had a little fly on his arm like an attack falcon, and they didn't use that, and that always stuck with me, and that became Zipper, and only this year on the internet. I just assumed everybody got the joke, Zipper the fly. Turns out, full mittens. Really? Wow, we thought it was kind of obvious.
They call Button the fly.
Anyway, the cool thing about Rescue Rangers, excuse me, is the cast was like a repertory company of 4. It was Corey Burton, Trez McNeil, from Simpsons and a million other things, and Jim, and then for a while was Peter.
Monterey Jack was Peter Cullen.
Yeah, Peter
Cullen was originally Monterey Jack.
Yeah.
He was very pleased to.
Yes, he would.
I mean,
What happened?
he's one of the greatest guys around. He's Optimus Prime, so don't mess with him.
Yeah.
Okay, but it was I remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was my decision on
We
it.
have no idea. I can't tell what he's saying. Ted's like,
I was doing basically that was the crew, and so Jim was always there to do Fat Cat.
He was Zero Mostel.
Yes. Whoa, we've used up that much time. Better talk. But anyway, so Jim was basically there every week to do every other voice. Between Corey and Trez and Jim, we had 2,000 voices in the room, so we never had to bring in. And then when we recast Jim to be a Monterey Jack, because basically I felt Jim could get more comedy out of the lines. Then we'd bring in Rob. That fourth spot would constantly rotate. But it was so great to have just this tight cast to do the series. Jim was not allowed to be on the series because after he developed it, he said basically got into this thing where I would give notes on a series while Jim or somebody else would do it, and then I'd get a series. Jim would be the management guy giving the notes. And then when I moved on to Darkwing, Greg Wiseman was in a position to give notes.
Greg regrets that he wasn't able to be here, by the way.
Greg, of course, did Gargoyles. Greg was an editor at DC Comics. I don't know that you guys realize that, and he did a lot of writing uncredited on one of the runs of Captain Atom. Obviously, Greg knew all the Silver Age comic tropes that I was playing with. So he was very supportive. And what he said to me once, and I never repeated this to Gary Price a lot of times, is he says, look, my job is just to be an objective, person in the room saying, why don't you go this way or that way? You don't have to take my ideas. And I'm sure Gary would have said, what do you mean you can't tell them they don't have to take your ideas? It's like he's supposed to give notes. And basically he said, but you don't have to listen to my notes. But he was great. He was a great asset on that, and we had a lot of fun on that. But Darkwing Duck was a character I got to create from scratch, and Jim and Jeannie McSwain was our casting director and voice director. and the two of them, created that character by giving him feedback. He'd do a noise, she'd say, "Oh, use that again," and all that. It really was great to see this character built up, because what has happened in the old days when Jim did on Gummy Bears, you bring in these fantastic talents and you'd say, "Okay, here's the character, let's play with it." And then it became just like, come in, here's 3 lines, thank you, next guy, here's the same 3 lines. And the creation of Darkwing, I just felt was a chance for really a character to develop.
Does anyone want to hear any Darkwing?
Well, thank you, Dad. That was very insightful. And I am the terror that flaps in the night. I don't know if anybody knew that. And I am the bug that splatters across the windshield of crime. Thank you, because I am, say it with me, Darkwing Duck! Yes, indeed. And he's my dad. And Steelbeak there is no rumor. I heard the rumor that Steelbeak is in the room, one of Darkwing's most...
Hey, let me tell you something, Darkwing doofus. I'm going to beat you 3 ways, up, down, and continuously.
Oh, fine. Ouch. So, yeah.
And there was a case of knowing that Rob used to play around with that voice, and so Steelbeak was created for Rob and that voice.
No kidding.
Yeah, kidding.
Thank you very much. I thought all your taste was in your mouth. Clearly it's not.
Another thing about the I Am the Terror stuff is originally Darkwing was just always going to say the same thing, just like the Shadow always said the same thing. And early on, I think our 3rd script, we had a show, and ironically, it went to our French studio, and it was literally the last show to come back about a year, some months later. We had a show where Launchpad had to be Darkwing Duck, and the gag was he always screwed up the line, and it was like so hilarious. It was like, I'm sorry, Darkwing's getting that bit from now on. So it was like, it was not like why he saddled with previous decisions.
Well, I think what people also don't know is that the original first catchphrase that he was supposed to say was "Cowabunga."
That's right.
Which probably didn't work. Jeffrey and Michael both said no.
Not enough turtle wax.
Yeah. I just want to jump in here really quick and say that we don't have a lot of time left, so let's do like a couple of really quick questions, and also let me throw something on the screen, because I think there's some kids in here, and I think some visual stimulation might be good.
By the way, before you guys raise your hand for questions, I will cut off a couple right off from the beginning. One, Jim and I, or certainly not Jim and Rob, we do not own the characters at all. We do not have the copyright of the characters. Anything that happens to the characters is up to Walt Disney Company. If you want to say, why aren't they going to release the other episodes, it's purely that not enough people bought the episodes that are out there. So come Christmas time, if you feel like you want to give gifts,
there you go.
Go ahead, it's the perfect stocking stuffer. Again, we don't get anything out of that, but it is frustrating not to have the episodes out there on DVD. No, they've got the same ones went out to Costco, Best Buy, All right.
This question is for Tad or Jim. As we know, like a lot of the early cartoons were more lighthearted and geared largely towards the younger audience. Could you explain the thought process of including gargoyles into the mix, since it was a more serious, more dramatic series than the other titles?
That was just simple. Actually, Gargoyles, in a bizarre way, started with Gremlins. Way back when Disney had the rights to the name Gremlins from Roald Dahl's book in the 1940s. And that was developed for a time, and then that became Quarks, I believe, that Carl Gears developed, which were like mischievous little imps, long way from Gargoyles. Although my favorite thing about the Quarks thing is there was a pitch that Greg Weisman was required to do, again, you saw the card pitch. And the idea that these things would be really like pixie-ish and really mischievous, so they did a cartoon of Michael Eisner and a pixie pulling off his toupee. So you saw
I can't believe that didn't fly.
So it was like, picture with Michael Eisner and you know, with hair, pulling down without. And Greg was made to do this. He goes, how come they do it? And it's like, crickets, moving on.
And we haven't,
that.
Greg hasn't
And of
been
course,
seen since.
Yes, and all the executives who told him to do that, strangely did not pop up and take the blame for it. Anyway, from corks became the idea, turned into gargoyles, and it was supposed to be, again, mischievous gargoyles. Then they knew there was something there. It became, the final thing they were going to try were gargoyles, kind of like the Three Musketeers. And at that point, I had seen the rough cut of Beauty and the Beast. And I was just jazzed about that, and Greg asked me in on a meeting about stuff, and this is my only credit for gargoyles, is I just said, purely because I had just seen this the day before, I said, why don't you make this your Beauty and the Beast? He can be the last of the gargoyles. You've already got like a love interest thing. It's the only time in my life that I've seen somebody actually get an idea that kind of shook him, and he kind of said, he said, okay, Kathy or whoever it was, say, you go follow the Musketeers idea. I want to do something with that, and that just took it into the more dramatic way, and you know, everything else was pure Greg. And that was, so it wasn't like there was a conscious effort to turn dark, because that project had been in so many different forms going through. It just turned out the gargoyles. Everybody thought it was a great idea, and it went.
Yeah, so I know that one of the things that made shows like when Gummy Bears and DuckTales started different from what had come before is, from what I've learned from my research, it was really the first time some money was really being put into animated television projects, you know, not just like repeating animation or limited animation. I'm wondering if you can share any insight to like what your budget was comparable to like before and since, like compared to Disney movies at the time, or you know, compared to you know shows from the 70s and stuff.
You need some more money.
You can answer this as something. No, it was nothing near features. It was just Disney, again, Eisner and Katzenberg and Rich Frank protecting, and Frank Wells protecting the Disney name in animation. But, I mean,
Deep pockets.
yeah, as simple as that. So, oh, by the way, remember back, we'll go fast, the beginning of the story where I said you guys need a second thing to pitch besides the Wuzzles, and that's when they came up with Gummy Bears. They made the call to 3 networks. They had the meetings in the order that the networks returned their calls. And the first one was NBC, and they picked the Gummies. And the guy said, oh crap, we have to pick the other one. They had to deal with Hasbro and CBS. And they pitched one show, and they said they'd take it. And then they said sorry to ABC and took a meeting. If they had a third show, I'm sure ABC would have taken that. But is that?
Hey, hi. So my question is, I think Gummy Bears is, I loved it, and it's really creative, just the whole mythology of it. And I was just curious if you could say anything about how you went from that sort of crazy, like, please make a show about this candy idea to like this whole like culture and this medieval setting and these characters. Like, it just seems very creative. So I was wondering
Well, that was because
about that process.
the idea of Kit Kats had been turned down. You were going to do the Kit Kats and then the Gummy Bears, as opposed to the peanut butter badgers, which
No, real quickly, because I know we're pressed. I went the absolute wrong route. I created a villain called Licorice Whip. We had Scuzzy Gummy, Scummy Gummy. And it was all the wrong stuff. We originally had Bubble Gummy and all these sort of candy sounding things.
For a while, the show is actually going to end with a little dental hygiene message.
Wow.
Chewing gum.
Well, Peggy Cherry was very upset about
Step
that
into-
at TV. But anyway, when we decided to get away from the candy, we had always loved this sort of English medieval kind of setting, so that's where Art and I went with it.
All right, guys, lightning round, go.
Okay, so all of you guys' cartoons basically raised half the people in this room, because what you said beforehand. How do you guys feel about it affecting this generation? For example, me, because my family was one of them who bought the DVDs and I watched them.
That's our mantra.
I think it's great. You know what? Just prove because we're now down to a few seconds. I'm sorry, Seth. Instead of answering more questions, could we just have like 45 seconds of Jim and Rob
Why don't
doing
you just
character
sing the
voices?
theme song? Wow, you got it.
This is great. Seriously, guys, give them some voices. Where's Jim?
Yes. Sure. What? Huh?
We're gonna do
Oh,
this.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, what about Don Carlos, the amazing guy from Tailspin? He was my dad there too.
And
You know, King Louis, forget about it, man.
But wait, there's more. But wait, there's more, because Gusto Gummy is pretty much my voice. Yes. With paint. And thank you very much, because all those checks cleared too. Thanks, Dad. Wow! And and I was PJ.
Well, that's my boy.
Yeah, that's right. I remember the thing was so funny about the show, Goofy Show. You know, Billy Farmer, God bless him, he's been goofy forever, both literally and figuratively. And I remember, I would pay money for those outtakes, because I remember looking at, Max, who was beautifully played by the late, great Dana Hill, and then ultimately by Jason Marsden, and I remember saying, let me get this straight, man, your dad's name is Goofy? Are you kidding me? Goofy? What does that bedroom sound like,
no kidding.
Enough of that nonsense, but it was a great job. What a cast. April Winchell was your wife. Nancy Cartwright was Pistol. Oh my God, Billy, Dana Hill. It was just incredible fun.
A lot of fun.
Thank you,
Jimmy
gentlemen.
Swain was our
Thanks for the
ringmaster.
How much time do we have, Joey? 1 minute?
We
Okay, 1 minute, go.
owe them a minute.
Okay, my quick question. A lot of the pilots I noticed had songs in them, but songs weren't really carried on throughout the series. Is that some sort of Disney mandate or a change of ideas later on?
Every once in a while, I still get a check for Cuckoo Cola.
We sang on that. I know that I sang on that, didn't I? I did sing on Cuckoo
Possibly,
Cola.
yeah. Songs, so you would have been the high priest or something like that.
Probably, yeah.
You know what's really funny? My little girl Gracie, she was in a show, a dance recital. She's 8 now. A year and a half ago. I'm sitting there, and you guys will like this. I don't know how they just find this song. Rough, Tough, Burly Sailor, the only song I've ever sung in my life, and they wouldn't let me do another take. And they go, no, that's fine. But I can do it better. We're not interested in better, we're interested in done.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, Rough, Tough, Burly Sailor, with bo. I'm sitting there in the audience, and I'm not kidding you, I haven't heard it in 20 years, and I'm sitting there and I go, God, that's really familiar. Oh, shit, it's me. Yeah, I didn't say shit, because who would never say that?
I just want to apologize to, well, first of all, James Solani, everybody.
And they're going to shoot us.
And I want to apologize to our girl who didn't get to ask the question. I'm going to go ahead and give you a consolation prize. So they're going to come around and bring it to you from our friends at Acme Archive.
Wow.
Who, by the way, this is the exclusive D23 print by James Silvani, which features many of the Disney Afternoon characters that he could cram in there. But we're going to give you this dangerous print.
Oh, man. Let's get dangerous. But we do have the answer. We do have the answer to your question, because they can.
Yeah.
I just love that the face of all these people. Well, I could have gotten up there and not asked.
Yeah.
Hello, eBay.
Obviously, we didn't touch on most of the shows. These guys didn't get a chance to regale you with their voices, which really is the
What a
best part.
pleasure, though. Thank you so much.
We've got 2 more years before he hits 25, so.
Yeah, we'll come back.
See you next year.
And stay as sweet as honey. And don't forget that.
By the way,
Thank you. You can get that dangerous print at booth 5629, Acme Archives. Thanks for your sponsorship, Acme.